Welcome back, hikers. You are about to embark in an incredible journey of Q&A here on the channel Follow Bigfoot. Personally, I couldn't think of a better way to spend 10 or 15 minutes of your day. So you're familiar with how the drill goes by now. You throw your questions down in the comment section below in the video, and I answer them. Simple as that. We're going to change some things up here this week and get right into one of the comments from last week. Over 3 minutes of promotional jargon. Come on, man! I visit to hear about hiking, make different videos about this stuff, and stay focused on the title of your video. Now this is in reference to my Q&A last week. I spent the better part of the first 3 minutes talking about some news updates and things that are happening on the channel. Is that something that you guys want to see, or should I be putting that in a separate video? I'm gonna put a link up here above that surveys what you think. Should we just keep the Q&A strictly to Q&A and go right into it, not waste any time? You guys like that kind of stuff, or are you indifferent? Let me know. We here at Follow Bigfoot listen, and we are going to do that today. We're gonna roll right into things. We aren't going to talk about the million steppers here this week. We're gonna pull them all into next week since it is about the turn of the month anyway. Speaking of which, we are going into season 2 of the Q&A. It's hiking season, March 1st. That's when most hikers are out there hitting the trails on the AT. Anyway, so we are into season 2 now of the Q&A. Next question. What are the names of the intro and outro songs? 2 years ago now, when I started Follow Bigfoot, I actually paid someone on Fiverr to put together my intro and my outro songs. I had no clue what I was doing, quite frankly. I looked in the history because we did actually talk about music on the videos, and he mentioned that it was actually music that he had or he owned. I couldn't find the actual names. I'll reach out to him, and if I can get them, I will send it and put it in the comments below. Have you ever thought about doing the Colorado Trail? I'm new to hiking and hoping to do it next year. Yes. I definitely want to hike the Colorado Trail. I actually have been listening and looking into it a little bit. It's actually a trail that might be able to work with my work schedule and the amount of time that I can get off at a time. It's not going to happen this year, but it is something that I'm looking at down the road. I'm going to do a one-night backpacking trip in Missouri in a couple weeks. I was wondering if you knew of any cool trails that are about 15 to 20 miles long to backpack at. I lived in Missouri about 4 years, probably hiked on about 15 different trails. The one trail that I think will work out well, it is not easy, it's difficult, it's called the Green Rock Trail. When you're doing research about the Green Rock Trail in Missouri, it's going to tell you that's only a 10-mile trail. It's actually like a 13 and a half or so mile trail, and it's point to point. So if you did round trip, it would be somewhere around 26, 27 miles. I like this trail because it has a fair amount of difficulty, which is why I hiked it a lot, because I was getting ready for the AT. Plus it gets out in the woods. I actually saw an albino deer out there, which was pretty sweet. And the other part, you're not going to see very many people on the trail. At least I really never have. Now it does go behind Six Flags theme park in a Eureka, Missouri, so you're gonna hear and see a lot of things going on if you're going through the time where the park is open, so just know that. Now another part of the trail that I really enjoy, I think is a good section, is going out on the Ozark Trail, do the Tom Sock section. There is a couple things that's cool about that part. Number one, you're going to see a great waterfall. I think it was called Mini Sock Falls. You also hit the state high point in Missouri, so that's another pretty sweet thing to check off on the bucket list. And just the overall section between Tom Sock Mountain and Johnson Shut-ins, I thought had some great vistas, at least for Missouri. Have you had a chance to try the New Balance Hero 3 yet? I know you were rocking the previous version on the AT. Any thoughts on the changes, upgrades? So I actually did purchase the V3s about 3 weeks ago. I didn't like them. The shoe was really narrow. I got the 2E, which was typically what I wore on the AT when I got the original Fresh Foam Heroes. And I had no issue with my foot, which I do have a wide foot. So I'm gonna upgrade to the 4E. I'm returning it back to Amazon. Now, a couple other things about the V3 that I really don't know what I feel or how I feel about it yet. The tongue on the V3s is attached to the actual shoe all the way to the very top of pretty much the tongue. So it was a lot more difficult to slide my foot in compared to the original Heroes that just has the traditional tongue. And in addition to that, there is not an extra hole for your shoelaces on the very top of the shoe like the Heroes have, which I used to lace lock my shoe. And with the V3s, you can't do that. I don't know how I feel about that, but when I get the V3s back and the 4E, I will be able to report back. Bigfoot. Do you use an ultralight top underneath your tent? What I believe Kevin is referring to is a ground sheet for my tent, my duplex tent. I've had my duplex tent for over 2 years now, over 3,000 miles. I've never used a ground sheet. So no, my bathtub floor has no wear and tear. I haven't seen anything, and I've never had an issue. And because of that, I'll continue not bringing a ground sheet because I don't think it's necessary for the duplex. Can you talk about hiker midnight? Is it a time or more of when the sun set? And how do you know what time it starts? Hiker midnight, generally speaking, is about 9 p.m. That's a time when everyone's done eating, everyone has thrown their bear bags back up in the tree, they're winding down, and they're ready for bed. Most of the folks want to get 8 hours of sleep. If they get to bed by 9 p.m., that means they can get up right around 5 a.m., be able to cook their breakfast, to get camp set up and be on the trail by 6 o'clock. For the most part though, when the sun sets during the middle of summer, that's about when quiet time starts. And you do want to be cognizant of the other hikers. Now, if you're hiking late and you're hiking into a shelter after 9 p.m., I recommend that you are staying in your tent. The thing that most people can't stand is when someone jumps into a shelter at 9:30, 10 p.m. at night, or 1 o'clock in the morning and wakes everybody up. But if you really want to stay in shelters, then you need to plan your day so you can get to the shelter before 9 p.m., before nightfall, so you can eat and do all that stuff and not disturb everyone. How long would it take for an average hiker, like 10 to 15 miles a day, to do the White Mountains? In my experience in the Whites, the average northbound thru hiker is probably going to be averaging somewhere in the 10 to 12 or 13 mile range. 15 miles is probably on the high side. Now, if you're a section hiker, or if you are a southbound hiker that doesn't really have your trail legs or starting to get them, they are probably averaging somewhere in the 8 to 10 miles a day. Now, it's common that there'll be hikers that will probably max out somewhere in that 15 to 16 mile range, but the Whites are about 100 miles. It extends just past Moose Lock all the way to the Mahoosics. And the average northbound thru hiker is probably going to do that section in 10 to 12 days. So it really kind of depends on what is average for you. If you are averaging 10 to 15 miles on other sections of the trail, you are probably going to average somewhere in the 8 to 10 mile range in the White Mountains. Can you talk about applying permethrin to gear and clothes for the AT? How to do it, how much, how often? What are the items that really don't need permethrin? If I start a thru hike of the AT in February or March, do I really need to treat my gear from the start, or can I just wait until later in the season when I'm farther north? The biggest threat on the AT, in my opinion, it's not bears, and it's not the crazy hillbillies with the banjos, it's ticks. You have to take it seriously. I actually did a video about this, and I talked about permethrin treatment. I'm gonna link it above here, and I talk in pretty fair detail about this and what I used, what I treated, and how often I treated them. Just some headlines. I treated all of my clothing with the exception of my down jacket. All of my base layers I had, my t-shirts, my shorts, my pants. I also did my underwear when I was at Trail Days last year. Alda highly recommended that you don't treat your underwear. Nothing ever happened to me when I treated mine, but I guess it is recommended according to Alda that you shouldn't do that. Now for gear, I treated my pack, I treated the outside of my tent, and I also treated my shoes, gaiters, if you have gaiters. Now, one thing that I've been told by a couple different people, which is probably true, is the actual permethrin doesn't really bond with Cuban fiber or Dyneema, so it doesn't really do anything. I did it anyway, just for precautions, and typically I would have a little bit extra anyway. Frequency of applications. If you read the Sawyer permethrin, which is the product that I use and that I recommend, it states that every 6 washes or every 42 days, whichever comes first. I applied my application every 30 days. Typically, I would hit the 6 washes much faster than 42 days. Not just washing my clothes when I was in town, but how wet that I would often get because of the weather and how much I was sweating. I just want to make sure that I was precautious, but I did it every single month. During my thru hike, I only had 3, I believe, ticks on me the entire time. The permethrin stuff works. You probably don't need to start with permethrin at the very beginning, but if it was me, if I was starting in March or April, I would put it on and I would just start applying it every single month. It doesn't cost that much. You can go in together with somebody else on a bottle and apply it to all of your gear, but it is worth it. It outweighs the risk and the cost any day. And by the way, you can also buy at Walmart, and I believe it's cheaper at Walmart, so that's where I get it. I'd like to know your opinion. Which trail is the best for a beginner thru hiker? The Appalachian Trail, actually. During the beginning stages of learning how to through hike and really getting into backpacking, the Appalachian Trail is extremely forgiving. It is difficult. Yes, it is difficult. And I'm not talking about going up and hiking the New England section of the trail. I wouldn't recommend that. That's not where you want to start your through hike if you don't know what the heck you're doing. Don't go southbound. But for a northbound through hiker or a flip-flop through hiker, the trail is very forgiving. You don't have incredible distances in between resupplies. You don't have incredible distances in between road crossings. So if you have to get off the trail, you can. There are a lot of people, a lot of hikers on the trails, not just through hikers, but day hikers and section hikers. If you need help, you can get help relatively easy. It's rare that you're going to have hours on end that you're not going to see anybody on the trail. All of those things combined make it much easier to learn how to through hike, to learn how to hike, be out on the trails for a longer period of time, and not have the risks that you have going on some of the other trails, more desolate trails out in the US. Hope this isn't too personal. What do you estimate some of the top tier backpackers like Dixie, Viking, and even you make a month on Patreon and YouTube a month to help fund your through hikes? So I happen to know obviously how much I make, how much Viking makes. I don't feel that it's right to disclose what other folks are making, but I can give you a website that gives you a good idea of what they are making on YouTube. Check out Social Blade. All you do is you type in the handle of the YouTuber and it will tell you how many subscribers that they're getting a day, how many views they're typically getting a day, and then what the range that they're making. Personally, I am at the higher end of that range, somewhere around in the top 10% when you look at my range that I'm making. So if it says that I'm making on an average month $46 to say $620 or something like that, I think is the last time I checked it out. I'm making somewhere in that $500 to $600 range on the average month here in the last quarter. Now in terms of Patreon, there are some folks that disclose how much money that they are generating in revenue, and some folks don't. It just kind of depends on what their preference is. I do, so you can actually check out my Patreon. I'll link it again below. You can check out how much I make. There's a lot of cool things that I do on my Patreon, reward levels, things you can do. You can track me, gear giveaways, all kinds of stuff, but you can check that out. So go to Social Blade and you can type in your favorite YouTubers, kind of get a good idea how much they're making. Do you plan on going back to the Appalachian Trail? Absolutely. I try to get back to the AT as often as I can. I absolutely love the Appalachian Trail. I was just there actually about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago when I did the Winter Forest State Challenge with Viking. We actually just uploaded our first video, which is the gear that we brought. If you haven't checked it out, it's hilarious and we had a lot of fun doing this. Check it out, I'll link it above here. Me and Viking actually did our own version of this video. Check it out and tell us which one had the better video. Now, if you're referring to would I go back to the AT and through hike it, if I had all the time in the world, absolutely, I would love to. I would probably finish the PCT and the CDT before I would go back to the AT and through hike it again. Well, there you have it, answers to about all the questions that I got last week on my Q&A. If you have a question here for next week's video, make sure you throw it in the comment box below. I'll take all those questions and of course answer them next week. You can also email them to my email address at followbigfoot@yahoo.com. I want to thank you for staying engaged here on the Q&A here this week. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, you got to do it. It costs you nothing. It's free. What else is free these days? Stay tuned for more sightings from Bigfoot.